Clara, are you really leaving? Are you just going to abandon Julian and move abroad? In the quiet cafe, Clara set down her spoon and looked at her bewildered best friend, Mia. Her voice was light, almost detached. We're already divorced. Divorced. The news hit Mia like a bombshell. He actually agreed. After 3 years of you treating him so well, you'd think even a heart of stone would have warmed up by now. Did he truly feel nothing for you? Clara offered a faint, flickering smile. In truth, she didn't know if he'd agreed or not. When she'd handed him the divorce papers 2 weeks ago, he was on the phone, signing them distractedly without even listening to what she was saying. Before rushing off, he never asked about it again. Now, she just had to wait another 2 weeks for the divorce to be finalized. Then, she would be free. Just as she was about to speak, a deep male voice came from behind them. Are you done catching up? Both women turned to see Julian, dressed in a black trench coat, striding towards them. Still fuming, Mia was about to confront him. Julian, Clara just told me that you two. What are you doing here? Clara gently patted Mia's hand, shaking her head slightly to cut her off. It looks like it's going to rain. I was nearby, so I came to pick you up. Clara finally managed a real smile. After saying goodbye to Mia, she picked up her bag and left with him. On the way home, the patter of rain filled the silence in the car. Staring at the wife he'd married by a twist of fate, Julian's lips moved several times, searching for something to say, but he hadn't been home in 2 weeks. What was there to talk about? After a long silence, he finally seemed to remember something. Clara, that document you had me sign a couple of weeks ago, what was it? It took him this long to ask. Of course, he'd been spending all his time orbiting Stella. Why would he care about such a trivial matter? Clara's lips twisted into a wry smile. Just as she was about to answer, Julian's phone rang. Julian, I've had too much to drink. My head is killing me. Can you come pick me up, please? Hearing the soft, wheedling tone, Julian's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, his expression darkening. Stella, I've told you many times, I'm married. There was a moment of silence on the other end. So what if you're married? The bride at that wedding was supposed to be me. Her nonchalant tone enraged him. In 3 years of marriage, Clara had only ever seen his cool, self-possessed side. This was the first time she had ever seen him lose control. He slammed on the brakes, the squeal of tires screeching through the car. Then where were you? He roared into the phone. The other end went silent. A moment later, Stella's voice returned, choked with tears. I'm sorry, I won't bother you again. She hung up, but Julian's expression only grew stormier. His fingers tapped restlessly on the steering wheel. Finally, with a sigh of utter defeat, he typed out a reply. Send me your address. After the location came through, he turned to Clara, his face a mask of apology. Clara knew what he was going to say and cut him off. If you have something to do, go. I can just get a cab. Watching her open the car door and step out into the rain with an umbrella, Julian felt a pang of guilt. I'll come home right after I'm done, he said softly. Clara just nodded. She stood in the rain, watching his car speed away, a storm of emotion swirling in her eyes. This was the 7th year she had loved Julian. She still remembered the first time she saw him. A thunderbolt of love on the basketball court. He was unstoppable, a force of nature leading his team to victory, a living legend that had the whole campus buzzing. The girls next to her were screaming his name, giving the newcomers the rundown. Julian Joe, a campus icon, heir to the prominent Joe family, but his heart belonged to only one person, his childhood sweetheart, Stella. He would rent out an entire amusement park just for her birthday. He would publicly beg for her forgiveness after a petty fight. He would wait for her for hours in the freezing snow, even when she stood him up for a manicure with her roommates, and he would do it without a word of complaint. Throughout college, Clara was a silent witness to their epic love story. She assumed she was just an NPC, fated to watch them get their happy ending. Then came the wedding. 2 years ago, Julian, fresh out of university, couldn't wait to make Stella his wife. Clara wasn't invited, but she went anyway, under the guise of being a classmate, to witness the wedding of the century. The ceremony began, but the bride was a no-show. Julian went mad, calling her 99 times, only to receive a single text. I don't want to get married so young. I've already left the country. That day, Julian's legendary patience finally ran out. He grabbed the microphone. Today, I've decided I need a new bride. Is there any single woman here willing to marry me? In that moment, the heart of the quiet, invisible Clara began to hammer against her ribs. Knowing how many others adored him, she stood up the second the words left his lips. That day, she put on an ill-fitting wedding dress and married a man who couldn't even remember her name. For the next 3 years, they lived as respectful, if distant, husband and wife. All was peaceful, until a month ago, when Stella returned, watching Julian, a man torn between his resistance and his undeniable pull towards Stella. Clara knew her long dream was finally over. It was time to return the title of Mrs. Joe, time to grant him his heart's desire, and time to finally set herself free. Standing in the downpour, Clara sent Julian a text. "The document you asked about is in the glove compartment of your car. If you want to know what it is, just open it." Half an hour later, long after she had arrived home, he finally replied, "No need, if you're the one who asked me to sign it. I know it's nothing that would harm me." So, he wouldn't look. Of course not. He was rushing to pick up a drunk Stella. Why would he have time? Even if the truth was right there, within arm's reach. The rain fell all day and didn't stop until the next evening. Clara stayed home, methodically deleting every post she had ever made about their married life from all her social media. After clearing her feed, she closed the app, only to be confronted by Stella's latest post, a 9-photo grid of her relaxing on a yacht. Each shot was artfully angled to include a man's long, elegant hands. Clara knew they were Julian's hands. She knew Stella was doing it on purpose. But now, she no longer cared about such petty things. She turned off her phone, went to the kitchen, and started making herself a salad. Just as she finished, Julian came home. He was holding a cake. Clara stared. "I thought you didn't like sweets." "Why the cake?" Julian walked over, frowning at her simple dinner. "It's your birthday, did you forget? Why are you eating so little?" Clara froze. Her parents had divorced when she was a little girl, leaving her with her grandmother. After her grandmother passed away when she was a teen, she'd been on her own, and birthdays were just another day. But for the 3 years she had been married to Julian, he had always remembered. No matter how busy he was, he would always rush back to celebrate with her. He would pick her up from the airport, worried for her safety. He would hold her gently during thunderstorms, knowing she was afraid. Clara had once believed that these small, unconscious acts of kindness were a form of love, until their anniversary last month. Julian had cancelled their candlelit dinner, claiming he had to work. Disappointed, Clara was out getting a coat for Mia when she ran into them at a bar. Stella, drunk and clinging to the man who was supposed to be working late, refused to let go. Julian's face was dark with anger as he tried to pull her away. "Stella, stop it. Let go. What do you take me for? A toy you can just pick up and throw away whenever you feel like it." Stella ignored him, stubbornly wrapping her arms around his waist again and again. Finally, Julian surrendered. He stood frozen, his gaze dropping to her, his eyes filled with a pained, repressed love. His voice was a whisper of defeat. "Stella, what am I going to do with you?" At that moment, the bag in Clara's hand fell to the floor. Her mind flashed with images she had witnessed herself, their hands clasped tight in a crowd, his umbrella tilted to shield her from the rain, his figure kneeling to propose in his graduation gown. Every memory was proof of his unwavering love for Stella. She had seen it, she couldn't deny it. Even after 3 years of marriage, even as his wife, even after receiving a few crumbs of his attention, she couldn't deny the truth. In fact, the little kindness Julian had shown her was merely borrowed, stolen from the time Stella was away. She had held on to those sweet crumbs, and foolishly believed she had the whole cake. In reality, she had never possessed him, not for a single second. So now, looking at the number 24 foot on the birthday cake, Clara felt nothing. She simply bowed her head politely and said, "Thank you." Julian lit the candles. "Clara, we're husband and wife. Don't be so formal. Make a wish." She nodded, but just as she was about to lean forward, his phone rang again. Seeing the flicker in his eyes, Clara knew who it was. She sat back down, as she expected. A minute later, the call ended, and Julian was gone. Listening to the sound of his car fading into the distance, a bitter smile touched Clara's lips. The room was dark, the flickering candlelight casting her lonely shadow on the wall. She clasped her hands together and made her 24th birthday wish. "This year, Clara, you will stop loving Julian Joe." 3 days later was the class reunion. Clara was surprised to see Julian was there too. He was the center of attention, but as soon as he saw her, he came over and sat down. The atmosphere in the private room grew awkward. Clara knew it was because of her. In the eyes of their former classmates, she was a social climber who had trapped him. They all looked down on her. She didn't care. She sat quietly, her face a calm mask. The class president arrived late, carrying a large cardboard box. "Hey everyone, glad you could make it. So, today is for catching up, but it's also the 5-year mark for our Letter to Your Future Self project. I thought we could read them together. A buzz of excitement went through the room. Let's make it interesting. Everyone draws one at random and reads it out loud. The most boisterous guy in the class pushed through the crowd and drew the first letter. He tore it open, cleared his throat, and began to read. To the Clara of the future. Hello, are you well? I'm writing this to you under the warm sun. And though I don't know where you'll be or how you'll feel when you read this, I want to send you the feelings I have in this moment. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Clara. Julian, who had been scrolling on his phone, looked up, a surprised expression on his face. Clara's usually emotionless face tightened. She knew what was in that letter. Her heart sank. The reader glanced at her, a malicious grin on his face, and continued, "This year, you are 19, a sophomore in college. You've fallen in love with Julian. He doesn't know, but it wouldn't matter if he did. He loves someone else. Your secret love is destined to be fruitless. You might ask me, if it's doomed, why not give up? I want to tell you, what I love is his fearless spirit in the roar of the crowd. It's the careless kindness when he blocked a stray basketball for me in the evening breeze. It's the polite and sincere way he rejects others, even when turning down a confession. I'm the one with the sore neck from sneaking glances at him during morning assembly. I'm the one who braved a storm to secretly put medicine in his locker when he was injured playing basketball. I'm the one who filled a whole notebook with his name. Maybe he will never remember me, but that's okay, because a secret love is a war waged by one person, a beautiful, chaotic storm all their own." When he finished, there was dead silence. Julian was frozen solid. Suddenly, he remembered that humiliating wedding. He remembered the figure who, under a sea of judging eyes, had stood up without hesitation and walked firmly to his side. Only now, in this moment, did he finally understand why Clara had married him. It wasn't to climb the social ladder, as everyone whispered. It was simply because she had been secretly in love with him for years. In an instant, his heart, which had been dormant for so long, began to stir, beating a new, unfamiliar rhythm. On impulse, he wanted to ask her everything, but before he could speak, Stella's call came through. "Julian, I'm being cornered by some thugs outside the club." Before she could finish, Julian's face changed. He shot up from his seat and bolted downstairs. The moment he saw the thugs, he threw a punch. He was furious, his blows heavy and vicious. He was still fighting when the rest of the reunion party rushed down. Stella, now safely behind them, tearfully pointed out the one who had grabbed her hand. Hearing this, Julian grabbed a nearby iron rod and brought it down on the man's hand. A blood-curdling scream pierced the night. Clara, rushing down the stairs, saw it all. She froze, staring at the bloody, mangled hand. She looked up at Julian, but he was already gone. His arm protectively around Stella, his expression now gentle, his voice soft and coaxing. It was a tenderness Clara had never received. She lowered her eyes, hiding her emotions, and let out a self-mocking laugh. Then she turned and quietly went home alone. Julian didn't return until after midnight. He saw her sitting silently on the sofa and felt the need to explain. "Clara, tonight, Stella is a classmate. I couldn't just ignore what was happening." Clara didn't have the heart to argue. She simply hummed an agreement and went to the bathroom with her pajamas. When she came out, she found Julian holding her phone, a strange look on his face. "Clara, why did you buy a plane ticket?" She froze for a second, then quickly recovered, taking the phone from him. "I didn't. It's just a promotional text from the airline." Julian wanted to ask more, but seeing her closed-off expression, he dropped it. After all, Clara never lied to him, did she? He put the phone down to go wash up, but Clara stopped him. She took out the first aid kit. "You have a cut on your back from some broken glass. Let me take care of it." Julian paused, then obediently sat on the sofa and took off his jacket, revealing the bloody gash. It wasn't deep, but because it was on his back, no one had noticed. He couldn't believe she had. He watched her focused expression as she disinfected the wound with a cotton swab, and the letter came back to him. "Clara, that letter today. Just be careful not to get it wet in the shower, or it'll get infected." Clara interrupted, her voice steady, "And try not to get into fights anymore. There won't be anyone to patch you up next time." Julian, his thoughts derailed, didn't quite catch her last words. "What did you say?" Clara just shook her head, finished bandaging the wound, and went into the bedroom. When Julian came out of the shower, he wrapped his arms around her waist, leaning in for a kiss. She turned her head, avoiding his touch. Her voice was flat. "I'm on my period. I want to rest." Julian didn't press her. He tucked her in, turned off the light, and lay down beside her in the dark. The next day, Clara was getting ready when she heard a commotion downstairs. Stella had arrived. Entourage in tow. Julian stood at the door, his brow furrowed with his usual impatience. What are you doing here? Stella felt so grateful for you being her knight in shining armor yesterday. She insisted on coming to thank you in person. One of his friends chimed in. As if on cue, Stella produced a huge bouquet of flowers and a beautifully wrapped gift. Julian, thank you for yesterday. A little something for you. Julian didn't take them, but his expression softened. Seeing her chance, Stella shoved the bouquet into Clara's hands. Her tone was anything but polite. These are Juliet roses, Julian's favorite. Be a dear and find a vase for them, would you? Julian's brow furrowed deeper, a cold edge to his voice. Don't attribute your tastes to me, and more importantly, Clara is my wife. Don't order her around like she's your maid. The air in the room chilled. Only Clara's expression remained unchanged. She looked at the vibrant roses in her hand. Juliet roses. So that's what they were called. Stella's favorite. No wonder he'd spent a fortune cultivating this specific variety. In their greenhouse, she said nothing, simply handing the flowers to the housekeeper. Please get the vases from the second floor display cabinet. Stella's gaze on her became sharp and knowing. Clara pretended not to notice and took her breakfast out to the balcony. Through the glass, she could hear the conversation clearly. Julian, aren't these the paper cranes I made in middle school? You kept them in a crystal box all this time. You like them that much. I can make you a new box tomorrow. Why is this Barbie set here? I'm sure I threw it out. Did you fish it out of the trash? Oh, and these maple leaves from our trip to the mountains. You really made them into bookmarks and kept them for so long. Listening to Stella's treasure hunt, Clara remembered asking Julian about those things when she first moved in. Just little gifts from a younger cousin, he'd said. She had believed him then, ignoring the complex emotions in his eyes, the love and hate, the longing and regret, all of it, so clearly about love. After a morning of chaos, Stella suggested they all go out. Julian refused flatly, but Stella simply grabbed his hand and dragged him towards the door, his friends pulling Clara along for the ride. They ended up at a hot spring resort. Clara, never part of their circle, sat alone in a corner, watching them laugh and drink. Julian noticed her discomfort and walked over, intending to pour her some juice, but just as she reached for it, he suddenly turned and strode back to the group. He snatched a glass of whiskey from Stella's hand just as it reached her lips. You're allergic to alcohol. Are you trying to kill yourself? He scolded. Stella blinked innocently. I thought it was juice. It was a mistake. Why are you so angry? She then took the glass of juice from his other hand, her eyes curving into a smile. Thanks. Julian's hand tightened, but he said nothing. He returned to Clara and handed her the glass he was holding. Clara looked at the amber liquid, then at his distracted face. She didn't take it. I don't drink, she said coolly, picking up her bag. I'm going to the hot spring. Julian finally realized he'd almost given her the whiskey, his mind so full of Stella he couldn't think straight. He wanted to apologize, but Clara was already gone. The warm water soothed Clara's weary nerves. Leaning against the stone wall, surrounded by rising steam, she drifted off to sleep. She didn't hear Julian knocking. Worried when she didn't respond, he pushed the door open. Seeing her unconscious, his heart leaped into his throat. He jumped into the water and lifted her into his arms. Clara's eyes fluttered open. The sudden movement made her instinctively cling to his shoulders. Steam swirled around them, their skin touching, the air thick with sudden intimacy. Julian couldn't help but lean in closer. Just as their lips were about to meet, the sound of footsteps shattered the moment. Stella burst in, her smile freezing on her face. She bit her lip, her eyes wide with undisguised shock and disappointment. Before turning and running out, Julian froze. His first instinct was to put Clara down and chase after her. She misunderstood, he said, already moving. I have to explain. Misunderstood. They were legally married. What was there to explain about a kiss? But he was still living in the past, still playing the role of Stella's boyfriend. Of course, he would feel the need to explain. A man who had willingly tamed himself for love doesn't easily break old habits. Watching his retreating back, Clara let out a soft, watery laugh. She wrapped a towel around herself and opened a window for some air, just in time to see Stella storming towards her car. Julian caught her hand, and their heated argument carried clearly to Clara's ears. She was asleep. I was just worried she'd get cold. Why are you so upset? Yes, she's your wife, so I have no right to be upset. Go back to her. Why are you even bothering to explain things to your ex-girlfriend? Stella, do you have to talk like that? Like what? I'm telling the truth. With that, Stella wrenched her hand away, got in her car, and sped off. Julian stood stunned for only a few seconds before jumping into his own car and racing after her. Clara watched the dust settle on the empty road, then silently turned and went to the changing room. When she came out, Julian's friends rushed towards her, frantic. "Clara, something's happened." Julian and Stella, they were in a car accident. When they reached the hospital, they found Julian waiting outside the operating room. He was soaked in blood, cold sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes filled with panic. It was the most disheveled Clara had ever seen him. "It's my fault," he choked out, grabbing his hair in despair. "I shouldn't have said those things to make her angry. I shouldn't have let her drive off alone. She was just trying to get back at me. That's why she was driving so fast." Hearing him take all the blame, Clara's heart clenched. A nurse came out, her face grim. "The patient is hemorrhaging, and our blood bank is low. Is anyone here? Oh, negative." Only Julian was a match. Without a word, he followed the nurse into the operating room. Half an hour later, he emerged, pale and weak, collapsing into Clara's arms. "She's stabilizing," the nurse said, "but we still need another 400 cubic centimeters. Can you contact any other negative friends?" No one they called was a match. Desperate, Julian staggered to his feet. "Just 400 cubic centimeters. I'll do it." The nurse stared at him in disbelief. "You've already given 600 cubic centimeters. You can't give more." "Julian, don't," his friends pleaded. "Let me call around, see if we can find a donor." But he just shook his head, his voice stubborn. "Stella can't wait that long." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing the bruised crook of his arm. Seeing him, Clara finally spoke up. "The doctors are doing everything they can. They can get blood from another hospital. You don't have to do this." Julian paused for a fraction of a second, then ignored her and walked back into the operating room. Everyone watched him go in silence. "Anything involving Stella, and he goes crazy," one of his friends sighed, the frustration clear in his voice. "He got into a huge fight for her in high school, almost got his leg permanently damaged. And remember that time he skydived from 5,000 meters on a dare just to win her a necklace she wanted? The equipment failed halfway down, he almost died, and now this. I can't believe it." Listening to these stories, Clara felt a daze settle over her. Only now did she realize how utterly foolish her hopes had been. On her wedding day, there was no such thing as winning over a heart that was already taken. Love is love, and a lack of love is a lack of love. From the very beginning, she had made the wrong bet. And now, facing the devastating loss, she had no choice but to accept it. Finally, the light above the operating room door went out. The doctors wheeled out 2 gurneys. "They must be in love," one of the doctors remarked, looking at the unconscious Julian. "You don't see devotion like that anymore." Clara stood at the back of the group, a bitter laugh dying in her throat. Julian didn't wake up until the next afternoon. The first groggy words out of his mouth were, "Stella, is she okay? Is she awake?" "The doctor said she'll be fine," Clara replied, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "She just needs to rest for a few months." Relief washed over Julian's face. He tried to get out of bed to see for himself, but Clara and a nurse managed to stop him. After a moment, a plan formed in his mind. "Clara," he said, gesturing to a fruit basket, "I called Stella's parents. They should be here by now. Could you take this up to them for me? Say hello, and just check on her." Clara stared at him for a long moment before nodding. Stella's room was just upstairs. The door was ajar. Peeking through the crack, Clara saw Stella nestled in the arms of a strange man, her voice sweet as honey. "Alan, you said you were going to introduce me to your parents. Why did you come alone?" "I wanted to bring them, but you're still recovering. It's not the right time. I'll take you to meet them as soon as you're discharged." "Okay." Clara's hand clenched into a fist. Stella had a boyfriend, one she was about to introduce to her parents. Just then, a doctor entered the room, and Stella looked up, her face paling when she saw Clara. "What are you doing here?" Clara didn't answer. She placed the fruit basket on the floor and turned to leave. Stella, despite her injuries, chased after her, grabbing her arm at the top of the stairs. "Are you going to run back and tattle to Julian?" Clara turned, her voice like ice. "You have a boyfriend. Why are you still clinging to Julian?" Stella's initial panic vanished, replaced by a smirk. "I enjoy having them both wrapped around my finger. I like having my cake and eating it too. Can't you tell? How can you trample on his feelings like that?" Stella let out a derisive laugh. "I have what it takes to make men like them go crazy for me, even a prince like Julian." "What? Are you jealous?" "Maybe if you admit it, I'll be in a good enough mood to teach you a thing or two." Her brazen arrogance left Clara speechless. Stella's eyes roamed over her, finally landing on her wedding ring. "You're just the person who picked up my leftovers." What right do you have to challenge me? Let me tell you something. I never left the country that day. I just got drunk with some friends and couldn't wake up in time for the wedding. If Julian hadn't thrown a tantrum and married you out of spite, you would have never become Mrs. Joe. The rage Clara had suppressed for so long finally erupted. She raised her hand and slapped Stella across the face. It wasn't a hard slap, but Stella acted as if she'd been hit by a truck, stumbling dramatically and falling down the stairs. Before Clara could even process what had happened, Julian, just stepping out of the elevator, shoved her aside. He rushed down the stairs, gathering the bruised and weeping Stella into his arms. He looked back at Clara, his eyes blazing with fury. She did nothing to you. Why did you have to be so vicious? Stella, crying pitifully in his arms, deliberately showed him the red mark on her cheek. It's okay, Julian. Clara probably has some resentment towards me for being your ex-girlfriend. I don't blame her. Let's just go. Her words choked off any explanation Clara might have offered. Looking at his darkening face, Clara knew it was useless. Her silence, in his eyes, was an admission of guilt. He looked away from her, his face a mask of disappointment, and carried Stella away without a second glance. After leaving the hospital, Clara received a call. Her visa was ready. She collected her documents and began to pack. The days on her calendar dwindled. The year was ending, and she was about to leave the city she had lived in for over 20 years. Julian didn't come home once that week. Stella, however, sent a steady stream of taunting messages. A video of Julian gently massaging her bruised leg. Clara threw away everything he had ever bought for her. Photos of Julian presenting her with a box of jewelry, sliding a ring onto her finger. Clara smashed their wedding photo and threw it into the fire. A recording of Julian murmuring Stella's name in his sleep. Clara packed up every gift he had given her and sent them to charity. The villa she once called home slowly emptied. Her few suitcases were now packed. We're getting a divorce, she told the concerned housekeeper. Did he agree? Did he? Clara didn't know, but she imagined that if Julian saw the divorce papers now, he would be thrilled. After all, his heart and his eyes were full of Stella. 2 days before she was due to leave, Stella sent one last message. A photo of Julian's parents, smiling warmly at her bedside. Clara felt nothing. She deleted Stella, Julian, and everyone connected to them from her contacts. On the day of her departure, the first snow began to fall. Clara carried her old diaries and unsent love letters into the garden. The orange flames licked at the pages, turning years of secret girlish longing to ash. She tilted her head back, wondering how long it would take for the snow to cover the embers. Suddenly, the gate opened. Julian was back. His steps hurried. He glanced at her, then went inside. When he came back out, he stopped beside her, his eyes on the pale pink envelopes in the fire, a memory of the reunion letter flickering in his mind. His anger had long since softened. I've been busy. Once I'm free in a couple of days, we need to talk. Talk about what? The divorce. Clara smiled, her voice impossibly calm. Let's not. The one thing you want most in the world. I already gave it to you, a month ago. Before Julian could ask what she meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and a smile touched his lips. Seeing his expression, Clara tossed the last letter into the fire and stood up, her skirt hiding the flames. By the time he looked up, the letters were gone, and he had forgotten his question. Clara walked him to his car. A cold wind blew, and he told her to go back inside, but she insisted on seeing him off. Through the car window, he saw her wave and say something. He didn't quite hear it, but he assumed it was the usual, drive safe. He'd heard it 1,000 times over the past 3 years. He didn't think anything of it. As his car disappeared down the road, Clara stood alone in the falling snow for a long time. Then she went inside, put on her coat, and carried her suitcase downstairs. The snow fell harder, dusting her dark hair white. A taxi waited. Before getting in, she took one last look at the house and repeated the words he hadn't heard. Goodbye forever, my home. Goodbye forever, Julian. Julian drove straight to the hospital. It was the day of Stella's discharge. He'd gone home only to retrieve some old photo albums she wanted to see. At the elevator, he passed a man who smelled faintly of Stella's favorite perfume. A friend, he wondered briefly, but the thought was gone as the elevator arrived. He and Stella spent the morning reminiscing over the photos. When her parents arrived, they thanked him profusely. It was my fault she got hurt, Julian said humbly. Taking care of her is my responsibility. Nonsense, Stella's mother said, pulling her daughter away from him. You're both grown now. You have a family of your own. Stella is still immature, always bothering you. We'll have a talk with her. The atmosphere froze. Julian understood the unspoken message. His smile faded. When Stella playfully asked if he was still driving her home, Julian met her parents' meaningful gazes and changed his answer. I would, but my assistant just called about something urgent at the office. As he was leaving, Stella's mother stopped him. Julian, what happened in the past? Stella was young. She didn't understand how precious a true heart is. Please don't hold it against her, Auntie, he said, shaking his head gently. I let go of the past a long time ago. I don't resent her, she sighed, her eyes full of regret. It was her loss. Your mother tells me the girl you married is a wonderful, caring person. You two have a good relationship. You must treasure her. She is the one worth your devotion, the one you should grow old with. Julian knew she was right. He knew his story with Stella had ended at that wedding 3 years ago. In the years since, he had tried to move on, to build a life with Clara. But how do you let go of someone you've loved for 18 years? When Stella came back, he had softened. He told himself they could be friends. But now, hearing those words, he felt as if he were waking from a long, confusing dream. He thought of Clara, standing in the snow that morning to see him off, and a warmth spread through his chest. He bowed deeply to Stella's mother. Thank you, I understand now. After a stern but loving talk with his own mother, who gave him an emerald family heirloom bracelet for Clara, Julian felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was finally ready to leave the past behind and fully commit to the woman who had stood by him in his darkest hour. He placed the bracelet box in the glove compartment. As he did, his eyes fell on the document Clara had given him. He tried to remember when she'd put it there, but his mind drew a blank. Just as he was about to open it, Stella called, inviting him to her discharge party. This time, Julian refused without hesitation. He hung up, closed the drawer, and drove home. The villa was eerily quiet. Things were missing. Small things Clara had bought that he'd never paid attention to before, but whose absence now felt like a gaping hole. Sir, the old butler said, his voice trembling slightly, why did you agree to divorce the missus? Divorce. The word sent the world spinning. Why did everyone think he wanted a divorce? His friends burst in then, dragging him out for a drink before the butler could say more. At the bar, Julian pulled out his phone to text Clara. Are you out? Where are you? What time will you be back? Send me the address. I'll come get you. Be careful. The roads are slippery. Before he could press send, his friend, who had just taken a call, grabbed him. Change of plans, boys. There's a new show to see. They ended up at an unfamiliar bar. Julian, his friend said grimly, I've heard rumors for a while, but I waited until I had proof. Whatever you see, just know I'm doing this for your own good. Julian pushed the door open. The club was a kaleidoscope of flashing lights and pulsing music. In the center of the stage, caught in a white spotlight, 2 people were locked in a passionate kiss. It was Stella, but the woman he saw, her hands roaming over a man's back, her face flushed with a wild energy, was a stranger. The chatter from a nearby table drifted over. Wow, she just got out of the hospital and she's already at it. They've been going for half an hour. That's her boyfriend, Alan. Right. They've been together for 6 months. I wonder if she'll last longer with him than she did with Julian. Are you kidding? She's just playing with him. Look at Julian. She dumped him 3 years ago, and she still has him wrapped around her finger like a dog on a leash. Julian's friends, hearing this, exploded. They stormed the stage, cutting the music and turning on the lights, surrounding the stunned couple. What are you doing here? Stella hissed, her eyes scanning the room. Not seeing Julian, she relaxed slightly. I didn't invite you. Afraid we'd see you with your new boyfriend and tell on you. One of them shot back. Afraid? Of what? She scoffed. I'm just dating. Does Julian, a married man, think he can control his ex? Girlfriends love life. So you're done pretending. Another friend sneered. Done playing the heartbroken lover still pining for him. You've been with this guy for 6 months. Why are you still messing with Julian? Stella, cornered and furious, finally snapped. He's the one who came crawling back to me, begging for a second chance. I'm sick of him. He's like a stray dog I can't get rid of. I was tired of him 3 years ago. That's why I skipped the wedding. The only person I love now is Alan. Are those your true feelings? Of course, she declared proudly. Even if Julian himself were standing here, I'd say the exact same thing. As if on cue, his friends parted, creating a path. Stella's eyes followed their gaze to the man standing at the entrance. The blood drained from her face. For the second time in 3 years, Julian was the center of everyone's attention. But this time, his face was a blank canvas. There was no anger, no pain, no humiliation. There was only the calm of a ship that has weathered its final storm. He looked at the woman on the stage, the woman he had loved for so long. the woman who had abandoned him at the altar, and he saw a complete stranger. I heard every word, he said, his voice clear and steady. Thank you, Stella, for finally telling me the truth. He turned and walked away, his steps firm and resolute. Back in his car, he opened his phone and finally sent the message to Clara. A red exclamation point appeared. This person is not on your contact list. He'd been deleted, blocked, his calm shattered. He raced home, breaking every speed limit, his heart hammering with a terrifying premonition. The house was cold and empty. When did she leave? He asked the housekeeper, his voice shaking. This morning, right after you left. He searched every room, but all traces of her were gone. Sir, the old butler asked again, his voice full of confusion. Why did you agree to divorce the missus? He didn't understand. Why did they all think this? His mind raced, connecting the dots. The reunion, the plane ticket, her cryptic words. The one thing you want most. I already gave it to you. His secretary messaged him. Mrs. Joe bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. Her flight landed hours ago. Julian got back in his car, his mind numb. He opened the glove compartment for a charging cable, and his eyes fell on the sealed envelope. This time, he opened it. The first words he saw were divorce agreement. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. And there, on the final page, was his own signature. The memory hit him like a physical blow. The document she'd asked him to sign while he was on the phone. The gift. She had reminded him again and again to look at it. He never had. The light stack of paper felt as heavy as lead. He finally understood. She had seen his wavering heart. She thought he wanted to go back to Stella, so she had decided to set him free, to grant him his heart's desire. And in his blindness, he had let her go. In San Francisco, Clara was greeted by her former professor and mentor, Evelyn. 3 years ago, Evelyn had left academia to start her own tech company in Silicon Valley. It was her job offer that had given Clara the courage to leave. Clara, it's so good to see you. Evelyn greeted her with a warm hug. The fresh start felt like a balm on Clara's weary soul. She settled into the apartment Evelyn had arranged for her and fell into a deep sleep. She dreamed that Stella had shown up to the wedding. She had watched them exchange rings, then left quietly, moving to America to build a new life. Her only connection to Julian being a shared line in their university yearbook, a nameless, forgotten classmate. The dream felt so real that she was still disoriented when Evelyn called to take her to lunch. When she got in the car, a familiar voice came from the back seat. Did you rest well, Clara? It was Julian. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were clear and fixed on her in the rearview mirror. Julian just landed and called me for a reunion, Evelyn explained, oblivious. I thought since you were classmates, we could all have a meal together. You don't mind, do you? Clara minded. She minded a great deal, but she forced a smile. Of course not. I'm just a little jet lagged. The meal was excruciating. Evelyn tried her best to bridge the silence, chattering about how strange it was for them to run into each other so far from home. It's not a coincidence, Julian said, his gaze never leaving Clara. I came to San Francisco for something important. I see, Evelyn said, confused by the tension. So you're here to see Clara. You two must be close. We're not, Clara said flatly. Before he could answer, the words hung in the air. Finally, Julian spoke, his voice hoarse. My wife. She filed for divorce recently. I came to America to handle it. Evelyn, mortified at stumbling into such a private matter, quickly excused herself to take a work call, leaving them alone. Let's get this over with, Clara said, her voice devoid of emotion. Julian looked at the woman before him. She was so different from the gentle, accommodating wife he remembered. Or perhaps, this was the real Clara, and he had never truly seen her at all. Clara, I'm sorry, he began, his voice laced with sincere regret. For the past 3 years, I failed as a husband. I took you for granted, and I neglected your feelings. I'm so sorry. His apology was real, but it was too late. It couldn't touch her. I don't need your apology, she said. I just need you to finalize the paperwork and mail me the divorce certificate. You can send it cash on delivery. His face fell. Do we have to divorce? Why? Clara looked him straight in the eye. I married you because I loved you. I'm divorcing you because I don't anymore. It's that simple. A month later, the divorce was final. Along with the certificate came a transfer of assets. That made her staggeringly wealthy. Julian had insisted on splitting his fortune equally. She put the money aside, trying to forget about it, and threw herself into her new life and new job. Winter thawed into spring. Evelyn's company landed a major partnership with several firms back home, the most important of which was the Zhou Group, and they needed Clara on the project. He's doing this to get you back, Evelyn admitted. Julian had confessed everything to her after Clara had left the restaurant that day, and had offered the lucrative project as a thank you for Evelyn taking care of her. Clara felt a weary resignation. It doesn't matter, she told Evelyn. I've moved on. For me, this is just a job. Returning to her home city felt like stepping into another life. The moment she stepped out of the airport, a familiar black car pulled up. It was Julian, holding an umbrella in the rain. Long time no see. Clara, are you well? She stepped back instinctively. I'm fine. The coldness of her tone was like a physical blow, but he pressed on. The rain is heavy. Let me take you to your hotel. No, thank you. I've already called a cab. At least take the umbrella. I don't need your help, she said, her voice sharp. And I don't think there's any need for us to stay in contact. Don't you agree, Mr. Joe? The words pierced him. We can't even be friends. Before we were married, we were just classmates, she said, her own umbrella clicking open. Let's just go back to that. You and I, we were never from the same world. There's no need to pretend. Her words left him stunned and speechless as she got into her cab and drove away, leaving him alone in the rain. The project in her home country lasted nearly a year. Throughout that time, Julian was a constant, silent presence. He moved into the apartment across the hall. He'd appear at the same supermarket, the same park, a quiet shadow she slowly grew accustomed to. He would invite her to dinner, to take a walk, to go on a trip. She would always politely decline. He would look heartbroken, but the next day, he would be back, a hopeful smile on his face. He was a reflection of the boy she remembered from college, the one who would do anything for Stella. But Clara was not Stella. She didn't play games. The project's end date coincided with Clara's 25th birthday. She had a flight booked back to San Francisco that afternoon. At the stroke of midnight, her doorbell rang. It was Julian, holding a cake. Happy birthday, he said, his smile not quite reaching his sad eyes. After she made a wish, he asked, what did you wish for? The same thing as last year. His smile faltered. He remembered her wish last year, to stop loving him. After a long silence, he asked a strange question. Clara, the day you left, when you saw me off, what did you say to me? I never heard you clearly. What had she said? She couldn't remember. Those painful memories were a blur. All she remembered now were the bright, warm moments of her new life. She wanted her future to be full and happy, so she gave him an answer that was a wish for them both. I wished you happiness, she said softly, and I wished myself happiness. The next morning, the world was covered in a thick blanket of snow. Julian was waiting to take her to the airport. This time, she didn't refuse. The drive was slow, the silence heavy with unspoken words. He tried to reminisce, to bring up small, warm moments from their marriage that she had long forgotten, but he now cherished. I don't really remember, she'd say gently, her eyes on the snowy landscape outside. At the airport, he made one last, desperate attempt. He handed her a box. Inside was the emerald bracelet, his family's heirloom. This is a farewell gift, and it's too valuable for me to accept. Please, he begged, his voice cracking. It's from my mother, too. Clara shook her head, her voice gentle but firm. I know what this gift represents. That's why I can't take it. The story is over, Julian. It's time for us to return to where we started. Each word was a new wound. He stood frozen in the snow, watching her walk away. She pulled her suitcase behind her, her step steady, never once looking back. The snow fell softly, landing on his dark hair,